let's just take a few minutes for, just from the whole time that we've spent together, the discussion, the explanation, the James Croft, the work with Ashley, this thing on coaching. What are your takeaways about public narrative and how it works? Yeah.
What struck me from both the video and your coaching?
What struck me is that everybody has a deeper story.
Yes.
And that we tend to tell a more surface story the first time round. But with someone who can stay with us and ask some good questions in an empathetic way, we get down to something that has a lot more emotional resonance to it.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen to that. What else? What other takeaways? Yes.
Following on the previous two speakers, you really helped us understand the difference between the facts of the story, which I think is what you were saying, and the story. And that's where the authenticity and the credibility comes in the public connections.
That's a great distinction. Sometimes we distinguish between telling a story and telling about a story. In other words, actually recreating the moment of experience is telling the story. Telling about the story is, when I was X age, this happened. And so it references a moment of experience, but it doesn't bring the experience into the present, and therefore the other person can't experience the emotional content of the story, and they can't experience you because you've distanced yourself. So that's, what else? Yes?
It feels very empowering because it centers the emotion or the motivating factor.
It centers the motivating factor where?
I forgot what I was going to say.
No, you're on a good run there.
Just, when you were doing the back and forth,
Yeah.
you were asking questions, and, like this person was saying that people have a deeper story. So I just felt that getting to that core part or that motivating part was very empowering when often folks feel bewildered or incapable because they don't have the strategy.
Yeah.
And so often when you're looking at your emotions, like you said, if you feel anxious about something, it's often telling you about a need.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a lot of people in the world that gripe and have feelings about things that are going on in their day-to-day reality, but they think that they don't have the strategy.
Yeah.
And so exploring somebody's personal story, often they can find the thing that needs to be done.
I'm glad you remembered what you had to say. No, really, that's so important, because if you're feeling more hope with more capacity, you're much more likely to come up with a good strategy. When you're feeling disempowered and you're feeling despairing, it's very hard to be creative and think strategically. So these are very much interrelated. What else? Other takeaways? Other interesting points? Yes? No?
We have to have the courage to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And not keep our shields up.
Yeah, it's crucial. It's really, really important. Yes? Right here?
Thank you. Today I learned how to create my own powerful narrative, because before I only had an emotional antenna to understand what narrative worked or not, but today I learned a structure, which means that I can replicate and develop my own as
That's
well.
great. That's great.
Thank you.
That's exactly the idea, the scaffolding there. Anything else? Yeah. Back, yeah.
That you can't give advice on somebody else's story because only they know the story.
Yeah.
You'd have to just be making things up.
That's interesting. Other takeaways? Yeah, right there. Yeah, let's especially folks that we haven't heard from before. Yeah.
So I still am not sure in how many questions is too many questions, and when do you reach the point where is asking one more question might kind of break the focus of the story, and you're not basically distracting away from that for the main takeaway.
Yeah.
Because we all think we have a story, or we all think we don't have a story, and the questions help to a point, and then maybe one more question and you no longer believe in your own story.
Well, it's interesting. That's an interesting notion. I mean, all of this is judgment. I think we tend to be more fearful to ask probing questions than we are ready to ask them. because we think of them as being intrusive. But the probing questions are what really where the learning is. You know, sometimes we say, well, I wouldn't be comfortable with X. And usually when people say that, I sort of think, oh, well, that's where there's some learning to be done. You know, it's like one of my students, there's a lot of talk about safe spaces. One of my students said, we don't want a safe space, we want a brave space. We want a space in which our courage is supported to step up and to, you know, find our way through the vulnerability so that we can learn. And I think that's a lot where it is, but it's a judgment thing. And so, yeah, you can go too far, you can not, but you learn that only through practice. There's just no other way, and your own, you know, your own values of what you're trying to do, I think. But it's a good and interesting question.